1 second, we will be starting shortly. 1 second, we will be. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching. I am Carl Gmeiner. I am Not One Guy in Sunday School, and I'm here with a very special guest today. She has a long and storied career in many fields. She has worked in aviation, computer graphics, mathematics, meteorology, retail business, and most importantly, she is my mother, Susan Gmeiner. Welcome. Thank you for coming on the show today. Because, as you may have seen in the thumbnail, we are talking about serving others today and our personal ministries. I mentioned last week a talk given by Warren Elder John C. Pingree about the personal ministries we have, the personal assignments God gives us to serve others. And if I were to think of one person I know who exemplifies that, it is my mother, Susan. She has, in addition to her career in aviation, retail business, she has worked in Rotary International as a club president twice and is a guardian ad litem. And I want to talk today about those two things she does because she has done countless service hours and many projects. Thank you for joining me today, Mom.
Well, you're welcome, Carl.
What is Rotary International? Can you just explain just briefly what Rotary International is? Not everyone these days knows a lot about it, especially people my age.
Well, Rotary was started over 100 years ago by a businessman named Paul Harris. He moved to Chicago and didn't really know anyone, so he and a few other businessmen started a kind of a social club, and they called it Rotary because they would meet at each other's businesses. They would rotate their location. And eventually they turned towards service. So now Rotary is huge. There are thousands of clubs all over the world. We consider ourselves to be a membership organization, but we have a product, and our product is service. The Rotary motto is service above self.
Well, thank you very much. If I'm not mistaken, it's the largest private service organization in the world, or at least it's one of them. And it's most famous, I believe, for doing the best humanity can to vaccinate and completely eliminate polio. Is this true?
The effort to eradicate polio started off as a Rotary project. And the initial goal was to have polio eradicated by Rotary's centennial year in 2005. And it's proved to be such a difficult challenge that we're still working on it. We're down to like 2 countries. Rotary has partnered with the United Nations. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is heavily involved and has given us millions of dollars. So it's a huge international effort with many partners, but it was started by Rotary.
Well, thank you. And in addition to that, Rotary has been involved in thousands of other projects. And I also mentioned you're a guardian ad litem. What is a guardian ad litem?
Guardian ad litem actually means guardian for the suit. I'm not truly anyone's guardian, but the whole concept was started, originated by a judge somewhere who was concerned because social workers tend to have many cases they have to work on, and it's kind of impossible to do everything that they would like to do. This one judge had noticed that he was seeing a lot of reports from social workers that kind of all looked like each other. And he was afraid that the children were getting lost. There's, dealing with parents who aren't doing their job and providing a safe environment and a nurturing environment for their children. But no one really knew what the children thought. And so that's how the concept of guardian ad litem came about. And as a guardian ad litem, I am an advocate for a child who has been removed from the home. So it's my job to visit the child at least once a month, talk to the child, assuming the child is old enough, and find out what the child wants. And then when I write my court reports, I answer other questions, but I tell the judge, this is what the child's wishes are. And I can also say, this is what I think of the wishes, if they're kind of strange, or not quite what the child really needs. And I have more freedom to say what I want than a social worker. When a child goes into the the welfare system or the children protective services, the initial goal must always be unification. You want to help the parents get to the place where they can get the children back in their home, because children generally always want to be returned to their parents. The bond is very strong. And the social worker may not recommend a termination of parental rights for a certain period of time, but I can say it whenever I want. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And so I wanted to know, you've been involved in these, I guess Rotary is its own organization, Guardian Ad Litem is more of a...
It's like sort of a volunteer association, and it's run, I guess, by the court systems. I'm an officer of the court. Yes.
On local, like county levels, and Rotary is a worldwide organization. How long have you been involved?
I have been in Rotary for 18 years, about, and I have been a Guardian Ad Litem for 5 years.
5 years. Now, what made you choose these two avenues for service? Because there's hundreds of organizations in the world.
I chose Rotary because I'm the daughter of a Rotarian. As long as I can remember, my father was in Rotary, but it wasn't until I was a young adult he started really getting heavily involved in world community service. As a family, we went to El Salvador, and he met up with some Rotarians, and he started his first international project where they equipped a women's hospital. It had been built, but the money wasn't there to get the equipment. And that's what they did. And Rotary projects always work between Rotary clubs. So his Rotary club partnered with a Rotary club or clubs in Guatemala. So you have boots on the ground in both places, and people who can be responsible for handling everything and finding all the right solutions.
Okay, so you were drawn to Rotary because you had a father who was involved in this and who was very personally involved. He didn't just write a check, but he went in there and he did the work.
He did, and that was just the beginning of his world community service. He has done projects in Russia, in China, Pakistan, I think, multiple projects in Central America, and has had some very personal involvement and has really been a blessing to thousands of people. And he didn't do that alone. Of course, there were lots of Rotarians and lots of clubs involved. And Rotary provides this fantastic network for getting these things done.
Well, thank you. And what made you have an interest in helping children in the foster care system? Because this is completely separate from Rotary, but it's something you've chosen to do with your free time, which I know you're a very busy woman. You run your own business.
Well, I learned about it at Rotary. And the Rotary meetings, we meet once a week and we always have a speaker. And the Guardian Ad Litem people presented once, and a couple of years later they presented again. And I just thought, dang, this is important work. And I finally kind of couldn't take it anymore. And I signed up, took the training, and yeah.
Okay. Let's try to keep our voices a little low, not because you're speaking too loud or I am, just because of where we're filming today. It's
Sorry.
We're in this one.
My apologies. Thank you for your patience.
Sorry.
Now, Rotary International has done projects with providing clean water, medical supplies, food, so many different things. What service projects have you personally either been a part of, or what has your club been a part of? Because you've been very active in this club for 18 years and you've been president twice.
A lot of our work in international projects has actually just been supporting other Rotary clubs projects. So we write a check to one of the Rotary clubs. What are our stuff? Okay, I'm just getting there. We did a project in Guatemala. When I went down to a Rotary project fair there, I met up with a man who had been a Peace Corps volunteer, and he was working with some very poor Guatemalans, and they didn't have much access. They didn't have any plumbing. They'd have to go down to some cave where there was a spring or something and get their water. And he came up with, or said we could get rainwater collection tanks. So our club raised the money, and we partnered with a club in Guatemala, and so that they could purchase these clubs, these big, huge rainwater collection tanks for the people, install them, and they could collect rainwater for the 6 to 8 months a year where there was rain. And for most of the year, they would have water.
That's an amazing thing. Have you said your club has participated in other clubs projects? Have there been any projects, even just local ones, that have originated within the club
Sure.
you've been a president of that you've, I don't know, spearheaded or been a major part
Yes,
of?
partner with the Children's Home, which is a local organization that has group homes for children who have been pulled out and they aren't in a foster home. And one of the women developed what she called the Real World program, and it's a one-day event where they talk to the children a little bit about budgeting and what kind of job they want to do, and sort of a little bit of thinking about becoming an adult. And then they give them all a piece of paper that says, okay, you have trained for this job that you want to do, and you've got your first job, and as a result of your training, you have this much student debt, and as a result of your job, you have this much money. Now you have to go decide on where you're going to live and buy a car and internet access and health insurance. And we have all these booths set up in the room, staffed by Rotarians. And so I might be at the internet booth, and the kids will come to me, and I'll try to sell them the most expensive internet service I have.
So this is a simulation of
Yes,
real world
total
expenses.
simulation, and they have to choose what level of internet service. Then they go buy a car, and some of them might choose an expensive
And so the
car.
object is to teach high schoolers how expensive real life is.
Yes,
And that's a local project you've been a part of for...
we've been doing that for several years. We do it every year, and I think we're starting to do it twice a year now, because these kids just don't get it. And the idea is, at the end of the day, their budget's in the black. Yeah.
Okay. And now I believe there's also, you've helped with a medical clinic in our local town in North
Mhm.
Carolina, and you've helped with a pregnancy care center.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other charities there? I believe there's a local farm you've been a part of that
Mhm.
provides food for those who are underemployed.
Yeah, a lot of these things come from our annual fundraiser. We have a big pancake breakfast every year.
The organization.
I know, but just let me. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, 5 and 2, great organization that they teach certain. They've kind of got their own gardening method, and they teach it at schools, and they teach it to people so they can have their own backyard gardens and feed themselves. The food bank, we do a lot of
Yeah,
work with.
Christian Ministries.
Yes, yeah, Christian Ministries. There is a residential women's drug treatment center, privately run. It's just a fabulous place. It's called Solus Christus,
Wow.
which means in Christ alone. Yeah, and it's brings these women in, and they help them get off drugs, learn good skills, and it's all done in a very strong Christian environment. And these women come out with incredible faith, an incredible determination, to do what they need to do, turn their lives around. They're very
This
successful.
is really amazing. So there's many local and international projects that you have been a part of. And I would like to know, Christ served all of humanity, as in his atonement was for every man, woman, child, black, white,
Mhm.
slave, master. Do you feel like as a Rotarian and as a guardian ad litem, you emulate this because you serve everyone that's in need regardless of their status in society?
Well, I guess so. I hadn't really thought of things like this. It's just like there are needs, and yes, I need to go
But you
work
might
on.
say your father did projects in third world countries.
Oh,
In China,
yeah.
a place who's a communist country that necessarily a lot of Americans may not like.
Mhm.
You do work for the least advantaged children in our society, the ones that are from
That's where
homes
the
that are
work
being ripped
needs to
apart.
be done.
Do you feel like you, in a way, neither one of those groups you're a part of is in and of itself a Christian group? Do you feel like you're doing the work of Christ by helping these people?
I think both organizations do. Yes, they're secular organizations, and maybe there's a lot of people in there that don't see it that way. But you know what? We're all born with the light of Christ, whether or not we recognize it. And all good things come from Christ. And there is a lot of good, tremendous good done by Rotary. Being able to help these children in foster care and get them into the best situation is just really critical. So yes, God's work is done there, and quite a bit, possibly by people who don't recognize what they're doing, but they're doing it.
Well, thank you. And you've been a part of Rotary for 18 years.
Mhm.
I know you've been a club president twice, but you've spent a lot of time. You've sacrificed a lot of your spare time, and how much have you gotten paid for all this?
Of course you don't get paid.
You don't get paid for anything.
No, it costs a lot to be a Rotarian.
And you've sacrificed a lot of time. If you could,
But that's what people should do.
No.
You know, let me just say one thing about this. One of the greatest blessings I have found in Rotary is the caliber of the people I meet. You know, you go there because you want to do good things and you see what great things these other people are doing. And you might not agree with everything they do in their life, but you say, wow, I want to emulate their good work. And it's really good to be involved there because there's a lot of sacrifice.
It's like you went right into the avenue I was hoping to go down, and that is the Savior said something to the effect of, you know, unless you lose yourself in service to others, you know, unless you give up your life, you're not going to have one. And then if you're trying to save your life, you're going to lose it. But if you're willing to give it up, that's where you'll find it. Do you feel like you found yourself by giving your time? Because it's very selfless of you to give almost 2 decades weekly, you know, set hours and hours to these organizations that don't pay you. Do you feel like you've helped find purpose in life by serving others?
Well, first of all, I feel like, I guess you're my son, so of course you would overstate all my virtues, and and yeah, I do try hard, but you know, I continually notice what I could have done better. Have I found myself?
You found more purpose in life.
Oh, absolutely. Because I was going to say, I'm not so sure I've completely found myself, but I would say I've found a lot of it. And there is, a lot. Whatever. Go ahead. Don't know what I was going to say.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to know you found that, because the Savior, he dedicated his whole ministry to service. We see in the scriptures that even though he was sent to the Jews, he healed a Gentile woman because her faith was strong, and that he took care of the people who were lowest in society. He fed the hungry, and the people he helped and tried to serve were the prostitutes, the people that were hated, and the ones who were sick and afflicted, and so many other things. And I feel like these groups do that, and we're here today to talk about personal ministries, which this is, you know, your way and your part of the world, to try to help these underadvantaged people. Do you feel like you've seen the Savior's hand in magnifying what you do, because, or in what you've seen these organizations do, because your father certainly did a whole lot of work internationally. You've done a lot of work. Do you feel like you've
Well, let me tell you a story about Grandpa Carl. They did a video on one of the projects. It was called The Miracle of the Water. I think it was in Western China. There was a community that was quite poor. No electricity, no running water. They had a lake. It was like down the hill. And every day they would get their buckets, walk all the way down the hill. I think it was over a mile, fill their buckets and come back. And they would spend so much time fetching water, they didn't have time for self-improvement, like gaining education, job skills where they could do anything, because they just spent all their time getting water. And Rotary frequently partners with other organizations. So I'm sure they partnered with engineering and stuff to help them figure this out. But they decided that they would help these people by helping them to pump water up from the lake to their community. And the plans were made. And it was just a fact that they were not going to be able to finish this project before the ground froze. And once the ground froze for the year, they couldn't work on it again until the following year. And the people of the community said, no, we're going to do this. They were told it was not possible. They said, we're going to do it. And they were very, very hard. The day after they turned on the water, the ground froze. And I'm just convinced that they had divine help there. They did everything they could, and God filled in the rest. That's what I believe.
Wow, that is a truly amazing story. About how God could literally affect the weather in your area in order to help these people and magnify your efforts, because God could have sent an angel out to dig those pipes, to send that water in. But he did it through work of people like you and your father, who just, of their own money and time, wanted to go help people, and they found a place they could do it. And I think that is a personal ministry.
Mhm.
That is what we should be trying to do. And I really appreciate you sharing that story. I believe he helped in a village in Guatemala called
Paquila. Oh,
And
amazing.
we have some time left. I was wondering, could you tell us what did Grandpa Carl do there, and how do you feel like that blessed others?
Well, Grandpa Carl did have a very good understanding of how to do international community service. And when you go into a community, it's really important to establish a relationship. And it's really important to understand what the community needs.
What did this community need?
Well, I'll get there in a minute. I'm not done telling you what's important. And, the community, that's okay. And it's really important to have the community be very hands-on in doing these things. For instance, you could provide resources and training and they would do the work. That's kind of what happened in the miracle in China. And so what was your question?
What did this community in Paquila need? Because I feel, from what I know of this story, this is the example of what God can use us for, to do amazing things for others. So
the most important thing they needed in the beginning was the ability to understand hygiene and have what it takes to have good hygiene. So they started this project, gosh, was it in the 90s or something? They started to get to know this community. And there was a cholera epidemic in Central America at the time. And just a lot of people were getting cholera. Or maybe they started working with them shortly, but yeah, they started working with them before the cholera epidemic. And actually, they spent about a year getting to know these people. And the people finally said, so aren't you going to do something for us? And my dad and his friend said, what do you want us to do? And they came back. But what they needed was they needed to have an ability to keep clean. So they had no clean running water. There was a spring above the community, and so they could pipe the water down in the community. They built a community wash area, and it was a place where they could wash their clothing, and then the water would be drained away properly, because there was a lot of just water on the ground, and there were mosquitoes everywhere. There's malaria and stuff, and there were no toilet facilities there. They were all living in huts, so everybody got their own outhouse and their own shower. These are really simple things. But, community wash place, outhouse, shower. And then they took some of the better educated people in the community. They sent them to Guatemala City to some kind of school, and they learned all about health and hygiene. And they bought them a solar-powered VCR. So these people came back from the school. Now, the native language in that community is not Spanish, it's Quiche.
Oh, wow.
And they made videos. They made hygiene training videos in Quiche, and they'd all come to the community center and watch this. And when the cholera epidemic hit, not a single person in Paquila got cholera, because they knew how to wash their hands, they knew to use the outhouse, they washed their pots properly. Nobody got cholera.
When we say a village, we're not just talking about 10 or 20 people. We're talking hundreds or thousands.
I don't think it was thousands. I don't know how big it was. Maybe
We've been there since, and there's hundreds of people.
Oh, that's right. You went down there. So today, we went down there a few years ago, and Carl was with us. There are, at the time the project started, the community had one college graduate. But because of what was done in the community by the initial Rotarians, the government came in, set up a school, and they gave them teachers who could speak Quiche. And now all the kids are educated, because they also started a project to help women work. And no women were allowed into that project if their kids weren't in school. All the kids are getting educated. They might go into Guatemala City, go to college. A lot of them come up to the United States, make money and send it back there. There are real houses with running water there now, and some of them even have flush toilets. The place has totally changed.
And this all started with the work of one person who decided he wanted to help other people.
One or maybe a very few. Dad had some pretty good friends down there.
A small group, though.
Very small group of people decided it. But that's just it, the whole networking idea. because there's a lot of other things they did down there. They started microbanks, which are incredible.
Wow, we could go on forever, but
Yes.
this is, we literally could, because there's so many more service things that you have done, your father did, that were
You
just
know what?
amazing.
My dad was an amazing Rotarian.
And you've done a very good job following his
I
steps. You have.
I
You've
could.
given almost 2 decades of your time. You've been a leader in your local area. You've been a leader of a group that's done a whole lot, because the resources you and your club have, you have 10 to 20 people in a small town in North Carolina that come together and do great things, whereas he was in a group of hundreds of probably much wealthier people. But
Yes.
this was in California. Now, some people that watch this may say, well, wow, this is really amazing. I want to have a personal ministry. I want to be able to do my part to do Christ's work. How could I get started? Because nobody just wakes up and says, I'm going to go give a village in Guatemala running water. How could someone who's just an average Joe get started and learn what their calling is?
You're going to get started when it bugs you enough. You've been thinking about it. Well, this is how it was with me. I thought about these things for a while, and I finally said, forget it, I'm going to do it. And of course, you want to know a good organization, but they're all over the place. There's Rotary, there's other service organizations, there's civic clubs, all your charities in town, your food bank, your crisis pregnancy center, literacy organizations, they're out there. So let me put in a plug for Just Serve. That's an app you can download from the App Store, or the Apple Store, or whatever, the Mac Store.
App Store, Play Store.
Yeah, whatever. You can download this app, and you can type in your zip code or your city, and you can get a list of organizations that are looking for help.
Oh, so it's that easy. You just need to download it now.
That's right. And if
type
you're
in your zip code,
yes,
and you see where you can serve.
Yes, you can do that. But gosh, you find a place, get started. You just pick up the phone. That's what I did. I called the Guardian Ad Litem office after it bugged me enough. I called Rotary. Funny thing is, Rotary for decades was by invitation only. You didn't invite yourself to Rotary. You got invited. And that's the way it still was 18 years ago. And I called up and invited myself anyway.
But it's no longer by invitation only.
Not so much. They might kind of say that, but it's not really. And in fact, Rotary is an organization where it's much easier to join than it used to be. It used to be you had to be like a business person, you had to be in management. And now it's open to people who want to serve. And there's also an organization called Rotaract. It's for adults like age 18 to 30 who might not be ready to join Rotary. It's less expensive than Rotary, but there's still great opportunities for service. So yeah, pick up the phone and don't be afraid.
And what was the name of that app again?
Just Serve.
Just Serve.
Because, me personally, I've been afraid to do a lot of these things. It's like, I'm not good enough. I don't know that much. Going out to be a Guardian Ad Litem. The first children who are Guardian Ad Litem, I said I'm new at this, and they could tell I was a little bit nervous and I wasn't super sure of myself, but I recently got reacquainted with the oldest daughter in that family. And she said it was just so important to them that I came over every month. I really didn't think I was doing much, but I was there. And just by having that commitment and being there for people, you can do a lot. In fact, this is really flattering. She has just become a Guardian Ad Litem.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, really? So, yeah, sometimes these things are a little bit scary, but you can learn. And there's always great people in these organizations. They'll help you. They can give you advice. Good training.
Well, thank you so much. And lastly, do you feel like your work in helping others has given you a stronger testimony of what our Savior himself said in the New Testament when he said that when you serve others, you're serving him? That inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these, ye have done it unto me. Do you feel like you've seen that in your action?
I think so. One more little story. I try to do a good
Your
job
story's
of
all been amazing, so.
I try to do a good job of keeping the Sabbath. I try to be really careful about what I choose to do. Like if I want to read my scriptures or do family history, I think, wow, that's Sabbath work. And it's hard to find time to do your guardian ad litem and Rotary work and such. And so one Sunday I said, is doing my Rotary work a Sabbath activity? And I thought, I'm not quite sure. Maybe it is. I'll do it anyway. So I started doing whatever I needed to do for Rotary. And within a few minutes, this feeling of peace descended on me. And I thought, yeah, I'm doing God's work. This is okay. And it's important to do it. Any kind of service, Rotary and whatever else.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Ms. Gmeiner. Again, this
You
very
can call me
story
Mom.
woman. Well, I appreciate you coming and sharing your stories today on teaching us how we can have personal ministries and serve others. And we thank you for watching. We're sorry we were a little late today, but I will be back next week with a brand new episode next Sunday around 3:45 Eastern Time. Thank you so much, and thank you for watching.
Bye-bye.